I'm Richie House.
I'm Derek Remington, but that's my professionally known name. My surname is actually Rabbits. But do you want to answer that?
I can answer part of it.
Okay.
We all played at one time or another with a keyboard player named Tom Ayers. And I had played with him and on and off in clubs upstate New York. And he called me one night and he asked if I'd be interested in starting a band. I told him I was interested. And then he went and he talked to you. Could tell the story better.
He contacted me and he said to me, do you want to start a band doing original music? And I had been playing in different bands. It was like a way to start doing something I really wanted to do, which was write music and become successful. I said, well, who else is involved in this, Tom Ayers? And he said, well, I talked to Tom Nigra, and I had played with Tom in several bands.
Unbelievably good bass player. It was a big step because it wasn't a cover band. We weren't getting together, leaving our bands collectively and doing other cover material. We were getting together for the sole purpose of writing our own originals. We got an agent who said he could book us strategically so we could all do it. And he thought it would be a good idea if we had some kind of a theme play down the New Jersey shore. He said, I could get you booked down there, and that's the place to be. During the summer, there's nothing like it. So we all got together and we decided Beach Boys show. And we thought it was going to be a piece of cake until we tried it. The harmonies were absolutely crazy. And it did nothing but help. If you listen to our albums, you're hearing very good harmony.
So we decided that we would go out and get ourselves these outfits. White pants with a striped shirt and blonde wigs. Now, they don't have blonde wigs.
They weren't blonde. There was not one blonde, I don't think. Place held, it had to hold at least 1,000 to 1,500 people. The owner of the place and our agent came in the back room. We were right behind the stage, our dressing room, and they said, you have to go back out there.
It was the start of something in the clubs, and it kind of moved us up the ladder.
We would do our originals. We wouldn't mention it was an original. That was really good. We could get our stuff in there, and you know.
It opened up the door for us to play the better clubs.
Yeah. Well, you use the word intimate, and sometimes people in the crowd, in the audience, they would appreciate you a little more.
We worked at the Chatterbox, which is no longer there. It's in Seaside Heights.
Big place.
And we did a Monday night, was the first night we did it there, and the guy liked us and he said, hired us the following year to do the month of
July or August, I forget which one.
July.
Well, we played 2 years.
And so we didn't know what was coming down. And he said, well, you guys are going to play Tuesday through Sunday, and do a double shift on Sunday. So we got really pumped up for that.
Tom would say, by the way, we're booked at Kane College, or we're booked this day at this college. So we would play that day at the college and then go to the club that night.
We were like the U.S. Postal Service. We never turned in. We would always show up.
The guys that took us on, they were engineers in the record plant, but one of them, his name was Corky, Robert Stasia. I played with him in a band, briefly, maybe 6 months, and that broke up. He called one day, Rich Crane's wife called and said, look, you won't believe who I'm here with down in the record plant. And she puts Corky on the phone. I said, what are you doing in the record plant? Now, to me, the record plant is the holy grail of all the recording studios. And he was talking about, he was doing at the time, he was engineering or assistant engineering for Aerosmith and the Toys in the Attic. I said, boy, do I have a band for you. We just, I think we did that stupid album. But I said, you got to come. So they came to Jersey, both, he brought Dennis with him, who was another engineer. And they heard the band and they said, listen, you got to have direction. you got too many singers, you got this and that, and we're looking at each other and saying, wait, that doesn't make sense, but that's what you were saying when you said, I like the lead singer, and that's him. But I said, he wasn't the only lead singer. I sang lead, Jimmy sang lead, Derek sang lead. So they kind of tried to mold us into this really kind of heavy, kind of metal-y kind of rock and roll. And that wasn't us. Some of it kind of sounded like that on the first album, but we always had the vocals. We always had the background harmonies and stuff.
So they came to see us play.
Yeah.
At like the Great Gildersleeves, which is downtown in the Bowery.
Oh, you meant Kiss?
Next to CBGB's. And they would see us play, and they liked us, and Gene in particular. And at the time, Corky was doing Destroyer, the album Destroyer, which was a Kiss album. What transpired after that was that we were doing our demos. They flew out to California with the demos, and Gene basically said to him, when you're out there, let me know, and I'll poke my head in and put my 2 cents in. And the thing with Gene was, when he did, he poked his head in and said, if you don't sign these guys, somebody's going to sign them.
Then after that, it was like he'd call and say, can you get me a front table by your stage? He would do that, and they would sit right in the front. Talk about intimidating, but because we didn't have one of those huge shows that they had.
They were Kiss. Larry Harris, which was the vice president of
Casablanca.
He's actually related to Neil Bogart. Neil Bogart was the owner of Casablanca. I mean, there's a story out, it's called Party Every Day, and it tells the story of Casablanca. We're mentioned in it.
Incorrectly, I might add.
Yeah.
He said something like, "Well, we gave Trigger the chance, and it just didn't make it." What do you mean? We didn't. You didn't do anything. 2 weeks of publicity, and then they did Thank God It's Friday the movie. It's Casablanca Records and Filmworks. They took everybody off the records. Kiss's album went down, our album, but it was our first album, so that's a big difference. So we didn't really get the chance. Don't worry, you're going back in, you can do another album, we'll resurface this album later. And we're like, well, we don't want to resurface. We like this album, we worked hard on this album. You know?
It's getting great reviews in California, in Los Angeles. It's getting reviews in Cream, in Circus Magazine, and people are liking it.
Yeah, they were buying it. We were top 10 in retail sales in California with McCartney.
Yeah, with REO Speedwagon.
Yeah.
Their album was
top 10.
We were like right there with them. That's history now.
We did go on a real brief tour. We went like from Buffalo up to Cleveland. We played the music hall in Cleveland with Cheap Trick. That was fun. That was fun. We were both that kind of band, you know. I mean, they didn't have the harmonies or anything, but we were kind of that both melodic stuff, you know. I thought that was a fun little thing. Didn't make money. Things were different back then. You would make an album, and you would go out on the road to promote it. You wouldn't make any money. You would go out there, promote it with hopes that they'd leave there that night and go to the store the next day and buy our album. Totally different now.
As it turns out, this is amazing what's happened here the last few weeks. I mean, this I would have never thought that this would ever happen.
What happened was, the long and short of it is, Neil Bogart had like terminal cancer or something like that. Well, I remember we were doing overdubs in Electric Ladyland studio in 8th Street, New York. And we were there, and we would read trade papers and things like that while we were waiting for drum checks and guitar checks and all that kind of stuff. And reading, going, oh, Donna Summer, she went to Columbia. She's the biggest thing they have in their stable at Casablanca. And then we read something about, who was the other one?
Well, Kiss was like...
Kiss went with Mercury, or one of those labels, and we were like, what's going on? Swear to God. A day later, we get the call, and we were right in the middle of things, and Corky came to us and said, listen, I got bad news. The project's over. Stopped.
They scratched it.
Neil's dying. He doesn't want his wife to have any problems with bands or anything like that, so the whole stable is gone. But now here we are in the studio with the rug pulled out from under us. Now what do we do? What do we do? And we ended up going back in the clubs. And it wasn't too little too late, but it was nobody was into it anymore. Jimmy had it, and he wrote a lot of songs. He was great on stage, sang great, And he wasn't into it. He would go in the back room while we played and read a book.
We went into the studio, we were working on the second album, we're doing all this work. And Larry Harris calls us and says, Sid Bernstein wants to come meet you guys. And I was like, Sid Bernstein?
He brought the Beatles over here.
He was huge in the industry. He was the industry
Yeah.
at one time. And so we were like, he wants to talk to us about managing us? Are you kidding me? We wound up not signing with him, which was like the biggest mistake ever. And we went into the studio at BMG and laid down some tracks, and they sounded good, but it was nothing like we were doing previously. We weren't looking to get a deal. We're looking to just play and have some fun.
Yeah. Jimmy met this guy down in the city, Barry Lynch. He was over here getting his master's because he was a teacher in Dungannon outside of Belfast. And I'll never forget it. Called me and said, "You want to start a band?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "I've had it with that stuff." He said, "No, it's an Irish man." I said, "I don't know any Irish songs." He goes, "It doesn't matter. We just get up, don't even have to rehearse. We just go out and play." And we were making stupid money.
Yeah, it was fun.
Stupid, great money.
Jimmy was Jim Carrey, they called him Jim Carrey. He was that kind of a
He was.
funny.
Jimmy
just
was
funny. He was
naturally
funny. He
funny.
made faces. He was just funny. And I missed that because his lightheartedness like that really kind of it was the glue that kept us together sometimes. You needed to have a good laugh. Aside from the fact that he was a good songwriter and a good singer.
If he wasn't so good at writing and singing stuff, I'd swear he was nuts. Because he was funny all the time. You're just crazy.
Yeah, Tom was like business. Tom was strictly business. Tom fell into the job of doing the business part of it because no one else wanted to do it. He just
That's the
became-
truth.
I
That's the
didn't,
truth.
I didn't want to deal with the club owners, but he was really good at that. He really was. And
Yeah, he enjoyed it. Tom was the best bass player I've ever played with. And that's putting it mildly. I think he's one of the best bass players out there.
yeah, he was.
There's a bunch of real good ones. He was just so good.
It was great because I played with him in bands previous to Trigger, and he made me a better drummer. I mean, learned to play simply instead of trying to overtake like Neil Peart.
The combination of Tom and him, it was such a rhythm section, it was insane.
was
He
great.
was one of the most handsome guys I've ever met in my life. Girls would just like faint. You know, he was really, really good looking, but he was square business. He would say to us, we'd be in the back room, he would say, "Listen, here, take some money out of the kitty, go buy girls drinks." And that brings the guys. And it worked. You know, that's how I met my wife, by the way.
Yeah, there was a girl that one time came up to me and said, "What do you do for a living?" And we were playing. I said, "Well, we play." "No, really, what's your job, your day job?" I said, "I don't have one. This is my day job. This is my day job. This is my job."
We never had a job.
Those are the days.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened was we insisted on the picture being taken. So he said he succumbed to us and said, "Okay, you can have a picture." So we went to this place for a photo shoot, and the guy that did the makeup was like pouring it on, and I said to him, "This doesn't look right. This isn't me." "Don't worry about it. It's going to come out when they make the album jacket." And we were like the New York Dolls.
Oh God. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
And it just was not to our liking. But it was too late then. They already shipped them out.
I think it looks great.
Do you really think so?
I think it looks fantastic.
But we went to Jumpin' Jack Flash, as Richie was saying, and
Yeah, that was a great place up on by the park, 57,
59th Street Bridge.
It was all rock and roll clothes, so there's no place like that now. And that was the only place back then, really.
And I remember like looking through the racks, and she was like, the girl was like, "Pick anything you want out."
It was Casablanca.
Flashing the American Express card. We're like, "Okay."
Whoever we went with had to buy Casablanca out. So that's not a nice thing. You know what I mean? They're like, you mean I got to put a lot of money up for this? Because they spent like a couple of $100,000 on the album.
Yeah.
That's a deterrent, you know.
And we were kicking around New Jersey.
You know, after a while, you know, you're fighting and clawing, and after a while you just get tired of it. Everything's stacked against you. And then the worst thing is you don't want to start believing that it just wasn't good. I always thought, and you always thought, and everybody in the band always thought this stuff is worthy. And
this album that is being worked on now, which is being done, is just it's a labor of love for me.
yeah.
And it's unfinished business.
I think it's timeless. When I listen to it, and it's not because it's us, it's melodic, it's good stuff.
It really is. I mean, I've been playing it a lot lately. We're remastering it, re-engineering it, redoing it.
We're trying our best.
We're trying our best to do the best we can with what we have. But it just, I listen to it and I say to myself, that's us. I know it's us. But I'm not listening to it as us. I'm listening to it as music. That if I heard a band playing that, I'd be like, well, these guys are good.